It's a new day in the shop today after a week of vacation, and I am getting right to work on stuff. I didn't film anything yesterday. I just came out here, wanted to get some stuff done, but the Porsche's back in the shop. So I put with the help of some friends, it's like an 1.5 to 2 inch lift on it. I can't remember exactly what it is. I think it was 1.5 lift on it, and some 265 70 17s, I think is what they are. It's almost a 33 by 10.5. But we got that put on. We got it tested in the ditches. I got a couple videos of that.
It's touching, but just the lower half. It's like the valence section. I think so. Yeah. It lifts a tire every time. It's good, dude. It's so good. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm worried about the bumper, that's all it.
This rock right here. Come driver. Keep going forward, go driver. I just want to make sure it's going to clear it. All right, straighten out. There you go, there you go, yep. It's going right to it. Nope, 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 nope. That's painted section straight into the ground. Turn passenger. Oh no, you're good, you're good, you're good. Oh, I thought it was gonna do it. It's so good. What a unit.
I think you got it. It's gonna touch, but it's good. No problem.
And then right now I'm working on getting this thing kind of finished up, buttoned up, and ready for sale. So we've got the roof rack roughly, it's just sitting up here. We got some lights drilled into it. I'm pretty excited to get those going. I've got wiring coming, I've got switches coming, I've got some ideas of where to put them in. But let me show you what I'm working on right now. Right now I have the interior totally torn apart for the headliner. The headliner in these is pretty common for the rears to start sagging super bad. A lot of cars this era actually do that, but these Porsches get it just like everything else. So I'm working on getting the headliner all cleaned up and stripped off. You can see I kind of started in this corner a little bit, but I also replaced the hatch lift struts because they were not working. The glass ones have worked the whole time and they're actually really strong, but the hatch ones did not work at all. I just got those changed today. I'd open it and show you if I had more space here, but it's really windy outside and going to start raining here soon, so I've got the door closed. But I'm hoping to get this thing all buttoned up, hopefully this week into next week. Probably next week do kind of the final finishing touches, make sure everything works. Dot all the I's, cross all the T's, kiss all the babies, whatever you want to do. So I'm getting the headliner wrapped up so I can get it in here. And then I want to get this piece out right here and pull out this little tray and see if I can't 3D print one that can house a switch right here for the light bar, and then still have a small tray in the middle. Don't know what you'd use the tray for, but it'd be nice to have that. The air suspension models have air suspension stuff right here, and if you got the super rare off-road package, it had another switch that I think was a sway bar disconnect. The rear locker, if you had it equipped, was already integrated into this switch, because you can see the little light for the rear locker. This one does not have it. It's just got the dummy light, so I really want to do that. I've tried shopping around for a switch that would fit into these blank switches, but I don't know that you can get aftermarket stuff for that. But I'll get the lights all wired up. This thing needs another detail. We got to get the screen changed because it doesn't hardly work. I'm going to resurface these buttons. That's really, really common on these. So I got to scrape all of this stuff off and then put new button covers on there. Just a lot of little things besides the headliner. That's kind of a big job on these. So I'm going to keep bombing away at this. We'll see kind of how far I can get this week, and hopefully we can get this done. So I'll get right back to it. All right, I've got this pretty well done. I'm letting it sit like this and dry, especially the front section where there's a lot of ridges and fancy geometry that's not this big flat spot in the rear. So before I can flip that over and cut all the holes out and tidy up all of this, I'm just going to leave that alone to sit there and dry. While that's happening, I'm going to move back up here and work on the lights. So I was unsure where I was going to run the wiring for these, because in the past I've either run underneath the trim here, which is just not an option because of how tight this is, or I've also run in the really old cars, you could run the wires back and through the hatch gap right here, which is not also possible on this because it's got tight tolerances. This car is built a lot better than a lot of the stuff that I'm normally working on in here as far as a body gap perspective goes. So I was turned on to the KC universal wire hider. So it's just a strip of rubber that I can 3M to the windshield right here so that my wire harness can come up out of the cowl into the wire hider and then get up here pretty dang close and then jump up to the lights up that way. So that'll make it a pretty nice clean install, and I won't have to drill any holes into the roof or anything, which was kind of the next resort because I can't just leave wires flinging around and hanging out all over the place. So my second thought was going to be to pick up one of these corner pieces on the roof rail. You can see that these pieces right here are just caps for the hardware. So I was going to go up underneath one of these and see about drilling something, but I'm really happy I don't have to do that. So I can just run the wires down the side of the windshield. I saw a lot of people run them on the passenger side, so it's not so noticeable to the driver. But on these, this is a pretty tight tolerance, and you can see the line right here where the windshield wiper runs. So I'm going to see if I can fit it in here to where it doesn't interfere with the wiper blade. But if it does, it's going on the driver's side. So conveniently, all of the And move all the stuff off the hood here. All of the fuses and everything are right here underneath this cover. And so there should be a way underneath this cover to go into the interior as well. That's what I'm hoping anyways, so I can get the switch run on the inside. And then I'm gonna mount the switch, like I said, hopefully in that cubby right there. I did some looking online. I saw that this cubby and switch is like a combination piece. So I'm gonna take it out and kind of pull it apart and play with it and see what I can't figure out. But if that's not where that's gonna go, I'm gonna have to figure something else out. So for now, that's the plan. And then I might go ahead and start doing these stickers for the steering wheel while everything's apart. And that ought to keep me busy for the rest of the day. So I'm gonna get to working on this and we'll see how far I get. Well, other than the way that the 3M tape always comes apart, because these red things are always just the worst thing that ever happened when you pull them off the 3M sides. But besides that, I really like this. And I left a little bit on that top to kind of curve it and kick it towards the roof rack. If somebody really doesn't like that, then they can cut it off, whatever. But this is a phenomenal solution instead of having to drill holes. And I was able to get it really nice and tight so that the windshield wiper does not interfere with it. I'm gonna try to trim the corner just a little bit so that if it, like for some reason, slides over, or if you get a wiper that has a bigger end on it for some reason, that it won't interfere. But based on the wiper's motion path, that's clearing. So next I just have to move this trash, I guess. Go down into this cowl that's already cracked, which is kind of convenient. Makes me not feel so bad doing anything to it. But we'll go down into there and run wires over to there and then start figuring out the switch on the inside. Alright, so I got this four-wheel drive selector switch all pulled apart, and first of all, it's very sticky. Somebody spilled a bunch of stuff in here, and there's like stains in it down below where you can't get to it. Anyways, this is all one big piece of plastic. I thought that this was going to be separable somehow, because when you look at it from the top, it's got this line right here that looks like it might be able to separate, but nope, this is all molded together, which is really unfortunate because that would have been a really good spot for the switch to sit down in there like that right next to your four-wheel drive. And I thought about making a hole in it right there, because if you look over here, being that this is the base model, it doesn't have the second selector switch and the second circuit board. So I thought about cutting this in about right there and just kind of making it work. But if this was all the way down into the tray, it actually wouldn't actuate. There's not room for it to do the rocker back and forth. So then I thought about cutting this into here and trying to make something like this work, but I don't like that this is a piece of a double light holder. You can see how those line up right there. So these slot together like that so that you can have two switches together. So I didn't want to use that because it really works best for the two double switch And I thought about using a different switch because I have just a ton of like extra things, but all these other switches are kind of cheap and crappy. I don't want to use that for the Porsche. So instead of tearing this apart and trying to 3D print a piece where I cut and everything, plus on top of all that, the cheapest used one of these I can find is $80 and it's busted. So instead of cutting up this expensive piece, I think I'm going to cut up this expensive piece. Again, being that this is the base model, whatever is supposed to be right here on the nicer trim levels is just blank. And this wire right here is just a little blank wire holder. There's actually not a circuit board or anything right there. It's just a piece of plastic. So I'm thinking about trimming the middle piece out of this. I guess I'll trim a lot more than that. Basically trimming out all this gray holder, circuit board holder that's right here. So you can see it's over here. These are the screw holes for another circuit board with 2 buttons, but I don't have that. So I'm thinking about drilling that in to be, to be this way because that's the way that it goes. But actually, never mind. Ignore me. It would go this way. But drilling that in right there so that I take this piece with us. Come up into here. Your off-road light switch would be right here about, so you could reach up and grab it. So I'm 50-50 between doing that and just using the crappy switch right here. Jacob, this might freak you out a little bit, but I promise I know what I'm doing. Alright, I skipped through a lot of the boring work, but we're pretty well set up to go up onto the roof. I got everything soldered and taped and zip tied and heat shrunk, and I've got wire loom under here. I'm thinking I'm going to tie it down in a couple more places just to make it a little bit nicer, but overall pretty good. I got all these fairly well tightened up on these brackets, and it should be ready to go up on the roof. And then once we get it up on the roof, I've got some heat shrink to go over these 2 wire connectors as a unit, and then into this wire loom to tie in with the hidden light or hidden wire whatever thing from KC lights that I have up there. So this thing's about ready to mount, so I got to clean all this stuff off of it, and then we're headed over to the car. Well, that's pretty much installed right there. I haven't wired everything into the cab yet, but you can see I've got the wire hider, and then just the wire pops right out. It's got nice wire loom. I've got everything tied up nice up underneath. All the lights are bolted down pretty nice and strong. That's about as good as that's going to get for this circumstance. I'd love to be able to tie this to this piece of aluminum, but that's going to be okay. I don't want to drill into the aluminum since now I don't have to. And then, of course, you got to pay attention to how your spoiler opens up. You can see how close I got this one. That's plenty of play. If you shake this thing up and down, it won't go any higher. That's the limits of the hinges. This one actually goes back pretty far compared to what I thought it would. Let me close it here. I guess it's pretty reasonable if you judge by the crack, but I thought this piece would have come up at more of this angle instead of opening almost straight up. So that's always a good thing to check. I definitely did not close this all the way. There we go. Anyways, that's a good thing to check, but otherwise this is all bolted up and installed, and it is as secure as the roof rails are. You can see there, some of the roof rails are missing hardware, but where it's not, shake the whole car. Which is good. This is secured enough. So I'm going to temporarily wire this thing up real quick, and we'll see how bright they are. That's going to be all we're doing on this thing today. There's a lot of wiring that I still need to button up to get the switch done on the interior. And I need to do a load test on these because the listing for these claims that each of these lights is 120 watts. I don't believe that for a second because they are just Chinesium, whatever, cheap eBay lights. But I need to do a load test on those to make sure that the wiring is sufficient. Because right now they're all wired in parallel, and if they're 120 watts, that's going to be a whole bunch of amps running through there. I mean, that's going to be 60 amps, and that's kind of a lot for the gauge wire that even the wire harness came with. And it's got a 40 amp fuse in it, but the thickness of the wiring is what I'm concerned about the most. So I'm going to play around with that a little bit. If I need to upgrade wiring down here to go up and do all the lights and stuff, then I can do that. I'll just have to take the loom out of the wire hider over there, but I'll do a load test on this. Especially, it'd be so crappy to have some sort of electrical fire just because of how hot the wires can get running that much load, even if they can handle it. So for now, that's all we're going to do, and tomorrow I'm going to jump back to the headliner because it should be dried and cured and ready for me to start cutting all the rest of the holes in it and put it up into here. So I'll see you tomorrow. All right, it's another day working in the shop. I did some testing on that wire harness that I was talking about in my last little segment, which is going to be just a couple seconds ago for you guys. But I wasn't happy with some of the temperatures that was getting up to, and it wasn't blowing the fuse or anything, but better safe than sorry. So I ordered a thicker wire harness, which I have here. And that's going to kind of alleviate any heat problems running all these lights all at the same time. So I'll get that put on here in a little bit. But first, before I get all dirty touching anything under the hood and under that cowl and all that, I am going to change the LCD screen on the dash because it does not work. And then I'm going to move and get the headliner installed because the glue has been curing for a few days now. So it should be really nice and strong and ready to go. I still got to cut out the holes and get it glued up to the bottom side and around the sunroof and get all the clips put back in and everything, all the little things. But I want to get that put in too before I start touching all the dirty stuff. So I'm going to get cracking on the LCD screen. We'll do that first and then get to the headliner and then move on to the lights. And then I got to rewire the headlights, and hopefully I have time to do all of that today because this thing will be ready to sell. That's like the whole list, unless changing the LCD screen shows warning lights that we need to take care of. So I'm going to get to it. Alright, it's been a long day working and my tripod broke, so I haven't been recording a lot of stuff, but let's recap what I've done today. Lights are totally redone. I put the new wire harness on it that's thicker. That's not part of the wire, that's my air compressor hose over there. The new wire harness that's 14 gauge, I believe, is doing phenomenal. It's not getting crazy hot like that other one was, so good improvement there. And I got everything all tied up and rewired and everything, and those are pretty well good to go. I'll show you under the hood. Oh, I haven't finished right here yet, I guess. I need to put the kick plate back up in there to hide the exposed wires. Under the hood, you never know. So the wire comes down underneath this cowl piece, behind where that crack is. It comes in actually way over there in the corner. It goes underneath everything over here. The relay and fuse and all that lives right there where the factory fuse box is. And then our wire, our positive wire, comes down and around and connects into that power distribution block where it is from the factory. So happy with all that. Wires come through the firewall into this little switch right here. Easy on off, lights up. You can see really good amount of light. The screen works again. So I gotta shut the door so it stops dinging. If I turn the key. I gotta clear some codes because I had a lot of this stuff unplugged and everything. So I gotta clear codes in the ECM. But look, you can read it again. So that's a big improvement. I put some stickers on the steering wheel switch here. I really do not like these stickers, but this is a whole heck of a lot better than the nasty, crappy white blank face that was on these. So I did what was mandatory to be able to read all of them, and then I just threw the rest of the stickers in the glove box in case the next owner wears these out quickly for some reason. The previous owner put a really cheap, crappy radio in here, so there is zero chance that these steering wheel controls do anything anymore. So that's that. The headliner's in. It's looking very nice. I'm really, really happy with the way that came out. And of course all the stuff is all working. Nothing's interfering with anything. So that's all good to go. And I think that's all I did today. The only things I have left to do is I got to clear faults, since I created faults when I was messing with the key switch when I did the screen, so make sure it was working before I put everything all back together. So I got to do that. I got to put the kick panel back in here and tie up the wires really nice so they're totally out of the way. And then I got to rewire the headlights because the car is the factory halogen spec, and now it has factory xenon lights, and I didn't know that when we bought it. I know that now. So right now only the high beams work, and no matter what you have the headlights, high beams, low beams, whatever, it just has the high beams on as kind of a default. So I have to open it up and repin the harness so that the xenons actually power up with the low beams, and then the high beams are just the little halogen things. So I got to do that, and then check the fog lights because you saw the message on the dash. I'm sure one of them's burned out or something, but otherwise we got to go clean this thing, take some pictures, and send it down the road. All right, another day in the shop. Hopefully the last day that the Cayenne is in here. Today I'm just going to be working on getting the xenon, the factory Porsche OEM xenon headlights working on a factory halogen car with no programming. There's a couple of guys that have done this online. It's not a very common conversion because these housings are freaking expensive. I think for the pair of them from Porsche OEM is like $3,000. It's crazy expensive to do this upgrade, where a lot of people will just throw in some LED bulbs and call it a day. Especially when you do stuff like this, because then you don't need like crazy good high beams when you're out in the country because you got roof lights. So, if I can figure out how to do this in a very streamlined, easy to comprehend way, I will do a very detailed step-by-step video on this separately from this video. If not, then I'm just going to get it done and figure it out, and that's going to be the end of it. So, I'm going to get these apart, start digging in, and then we can go get this thing outside, get some pretty pictures of it, and get a sales listing up and ready. Now, before we get too far into this, let me show you the issue that we've been having with these headlights, basically since Matthew bought this thing. And I'm pretty sure you have to turn the key on. You can't just do the headlights on like this. Yeah, you got to do the key on. So, and it really does not like it when you have that door open. So if we put this in here, turn the key on, you can see, well, that one's not even working right now, but just a high beam. And normally, yep. So we've got the two just high beams. If you look at the dash, as it's going through warning messages, you can see the high beams are not on. You can flip them on, and you can see the little high beam light turns on over there with no change. This thing is making all sorts of noises because I got the key on. And it says check high beam. Pull it back. See the high beam light turns off over there on the right. And it's starting getting more check front light error codes. Or errors. No change. And this is the problem you have when you have the halogen lights, but the xenon housings. Well, the factory halogen lights with the xenon housings. So, that's what I'm trying to remedy today. So I'll get these popped off, and I found a forum post where somebody has done this and explained it in great detail, so I'm going to follow that, make sure it works, and then show it on the other side. So here's kind of a rudimentary wire diagram of the pinout on the back of the headlights, and this kind of explains what's going on. This one is pretty well complete for the halogen car. You can see these three are not used. And you can see a little bit of each one. I'll get close here. You can pause it if you need to. And then here's the other one that I pinned out. And I just did this with a multimeter playing around with it. But you can see the low beam positive from the car is on pin 6, and on the xenon housings, that's the high beam, and that's why only the high beam was working when the car is not rewired correctly. And then you can see the high beam positive is the xenon negative. The high beam negative is the same, and again, that's why the high beams work, because it's completing this circuit here from this positive to this negative. And then pin 5 that's not used on the halogen car is the xenon ballast positive. And the turn signals stay the same. The ground wire here stays the same. These three wires here stay the same. I didn't mess with any of them. These two are unused, which is really good because I stole a wire. I'll show you that in a minute. But this is basically the conversion that you have to do to get the lights working. And I didn't do any programming to the car. This is just rewire the harness and plug it in and it's working. All right, Emily, turn the lights off. And then back on. Roof lights. All right, today is the real last day working on this thing. The headlights are done. They are working, both low beams, high beams, turn signal, it's done. The car just has a couple of faults left that I need to take care of. It still has the four-wheel drive fault, which is because I like a smart person, forgot to plug in the four-wheel drive shifter. So I need to do that, or the selector button switch. It's not really a shifter, but whatever. I need to plug that back in. It has it says check side marker lights, and I know that this one over here is burnt out because we checked it last night. It says to check fog lights, and that's a little bit tricky. You got to think about that on these European cars. Both of the front ones work, but one of the rear ones is out. So I need to change the rear fog light bulb and then add washer fluid. And that one's pretty self-explanatory. So once I do all that, then this will be done and ready and fault-free. It runs great. It cleans up really nice. You can see how nice the headlights are, which is so rare on these. So I'm just going to jump right into it. I'm hoping that this only takes about an hour to do all of it maximum. It should take less than that, but I'm going to budget a little bit more time since it is a European car. And then we'll get this thing pulled outside, washed, get some pictures, and get it ready to sell later this week. Let's get started. All right, so first off, we'll go over these faults. Let's go ahead and do this. It is correct. I am not wearing a seatbelt. There's fog lights. It says it needs an oil change. That's okay. There's washer fluid. I wonder if it's going to do the marker lights with the lights turned off. We'll see. Shift only. It looks like the four-wheel drive system's working. Yep, that's working good. No worries there. So then we turn on the lights. Both of our fog light switches are working. And this thing sure takes a while to cycle through, doesn't it? There we go, front side light. That's about everything. So, oh gosh, that's annoying. Look, the little lights down here even work. That's pretty nice. So if we come back here on the rear, it's going to be very hard to see because it's daylight out. You can see this has one bulb and this one is burned out. That's the one that we're after. You can see on this side we got 1, 2 lit up. So that one on the other right there is the one we need to correct here. This one you can kind of see already. No glow. But we got this one, so got to change that bulb out. That's pretty easy. As you saw, four-wheel drive's already working. So that should be good to go there. And then lastly, washer fluid, easy peasy. Well, taillight's off. That was an easy problem to find. Someone just didn't put a bulb in there. Well, that's going to just about do it for the Cayenne here. There's nothing else to fix on it, and it is time to post it up for sale because we do not need it anymore. So thank you guys for watching. I hope this was a little entertaining for you guys. And if you want to see some more projects around that we're going to have in the shop, make sure to like and subscribe and stay tuned to see what we get to working on next.